Hello there, YouTube. We are here with a special deck profile for you guys. I'm joined by the Kaiju Master, Quackity Quack Lord himself, TJ. And he's gonna bring to you guys his iteration of Imperialdramon for BT16. We've done a lot of testing, and I think this deck has evolved in multiple iterations, and you've definitely become quite good with it. You've been definitely cooking me when we've run test games, and I think Imperial overall going into the new meta is going to be a very powerful force to be dealt with. You know, I think it does a lot of what Imperial wants to do back in BT8, but a lot better now. Partition as a keyword is huge for DNA decks in general. Yeah, and you've come up with a really good list. So hopefully you guys enjoy the video. Let us know what you guys think. If you got any suggestions for TJ, anything that you liked or didn't like, what you would change, whatnot, you know, we're always up for discussion. Check out our socials, which will also be linked in the video description down below. And you know, if you do enjoy the content, you like what we can give you, like what you're seeing, please do consider hitting that like and subscribe button. It would mean a whole lot to us. But yeah, enough of my jibber jabber. TJ, take it away.
Yeah. I think to note too, we have since this is gonna be the kind of the first one that we're doing for BT16, we have a lot of BT16 decks that we're cooking with right now. So I think it's worth saying that we're gonna be probably putting out a few different profiles for decks for BT16 before the set actually drops, so you guys can have a list to reference off of that have been play tested pretty intensely, or at least play tested enough to where like we know the deck works. So we wouldn't put it up without knowing the deck works first. Right. But yeah, just a little disclaimer there. Anyways, we'll go ahead and we'll start with the Digitama. I'm just running 4 of the BT12 Demi V. Simple enough, just one attacking once per turn. Green Digimon to play, draw a card. Just good consistency piece. We'll go over other tech choices later on in the video, but let's go over my list for now. Next up, we run, and I'll just do kind of 2 and 2 at the same time here. I run 4 copies of both the BT12 Vmon and the BT12 Vmon. The reason I'm just kind of grouping these two together is they basically are the same card, except for one part where they just grab their respective tamer. But they're good search. They're your key search piece, and the end of turn DNA is so important for this deck because there's so many times where you will pass turn on Evo, and you will need the end of turn DNA to be able to actually make your plays work. So I don't see a deck running any less at least a 4 of that inheritable or 8 of that inheritable. I mean, we'll get to where the other 4 could come from if you don't run the Vmon. I run then 2 copies of the BT16 Vmon. He's a really interesting card, a newer card. He has the effect of your turn once per turn. When one of your other Digimon is played or digivolves, if that Digimon is green or has the free trait Gain a Memory. He works great in tangent with the new BT16 Davison can, which we'll go over later. He is very helpful just if you're evoing another line first. It's just helping you keep turn, or at least making sure you don't pass over too much memory if you're having to kind of make a bit more of a tighter play. And the DP boost inheritable that he has for your turn. This Digimon gets plus 2,000 DP. Can come up when it comes to beating over your opponent's stacks, because most of the time you're gonna have jamming and security. So it helps with DP minus as well, though. Then I run 2 copies of the promo Wormmon, the movie promo one. He is on play, reveal top 3 cards of your deck, add 1 green or blue card with 2 or more colors, and 1 tamer card with Ken Ichijoji in its name among them to the hand. Return the rest to the bottom of the deck. In his end of turn, he has the same DNA end of turn that the BT12 Worm and V have. He's just another good search piece for consistency. Grabs your tamers, grabs your top end, your level 5s and your level 6s. And it's good having the extra end of turn DNA inheritable, I find. Because even though my version of the deck runs 14 rookies, I still somehow manage to brick on rookies sometimes. So which I was running 13 for a while there, but even then, like it's still crazy. So this guy was at 1 before, but I bumped him up to 2.
For sure.
But anyways, moving on from there to round up the rookie lineup, I run 2 copies of the BT16 Vmon, who has start of your main phase or on play. If it's your turn, one of your Digimon may Digivolve into a level 4 Digimon card with the Insectoid or Free trait from your trash with the Digivolution cost reduced by 1. He works great with the BT16 Vmon and helping you make an Evo free potentially. He has the inheritable of 1 attacking once per turn. You can suspend one of your opponent's Digimon, which works really well with all of your things. It just helps you in case you need to get something locked down so it can't unsuspend. Like with the new Paildra, which we'll get to later.
Yeah.
But yeah, good card. And then something worth to note too. Both the new rookies, the BT16 Vmon and Vmon, they only Evo for free over their respective Digitama. So Vmon goes over Demi-V for 0, Vmon goes over for Minomon for 0. Otherwise, they're Evoing for 1 over each other's respective Digitama.
Right.
So just something to keep in mind when you're playing as well is that when you Evo that Vmon in the back, it is going to cost you 1 over the Demi-V. Which honestly is not the worst thing. Sometimes it can be nice for choking your opponent. But just something to keep in mind.
For sure.
But that's the rookie lineup. Moving on from there, we'll move to level 4s. So to start off, we'll start off with the XVmon. I run 4 copies of the BT12 XV. The Your Turn effect, where you gain a memory when you would DNA, is just so important for keeping turn. It's so important for being able to extend your plays. And then he also still has the jamming inheritable, as long as you have Imperialdramon in name or the free trait, which it's just he's the best XV I think for all of this. And also being a 4-drop comes up a lot too. And then I run moving on from him, I run 2 copies of the EX1 XVmon. He's good if you can draw him early, because he still has jamming just innately, and then he gives the jamming inheritable as long as you have Imperialdramon name or free and trait. He can be good for that little extra additional poke if your opponent hasn't put anything out, and you know that you're playing against a deck that doesn't have too many security bombs that you'll be safe swinging into.
Right.
But yeah, so we run those at a 4 and 2 for those 2 XV. And then moving on to the Stingmon. I do things a little bit different from what I saw in a lot of JP builds. I'm running 4 of the BT12 Stingmon. He has the same Your Turn effect as the XV. It's just when you would DNA into a blue Digimon instead of a green Digimon. But you're going into Paildra, so it doesn't matter. He's blue-green. And then has the inheritable of, well, you have Imperialdramon in name or the free trait, you gain Piercing. Honestly, that comes up for me so much with Ukomon being everywhere in the meta right now. There's so many times where your opponent will get a Uko or even multiple Ukos on board. You can do a Paildramon play and you can control board while still piercing for damage. And also having the ability to gain the extra memory off the Evo if you do both BT12 XV and Sting. Combined with the new Davis Ken, it can make things. You can plus on memory off of play sometimes because it's so crazy. But yeah, and then to round out the level 4 lineup, I run 2 copies of the ST9 Stingmon, the structured X Stingmon. Reduce your play cost by 1 if you have a blue Digimon in play, so it's a 3-drop. When attacking effective, or when attacking inheritable of just giving you draw 1 if you have a blue Digimon in play. Not once per turn. Just good consistency, cheap drop. Not too much to say there. He's been the best Stingmon we've had or one of the best Stingmon we've had for a while.
Yeah.
But that's our level 4s. I'm running 12 level 4s. Because you are DNAing so much, you really need to see them. And you really want to be able to, in case something happens to your stack or happens to your pieces, you want to be able to consistently have enough pieces to go up into another Paildra.
Right.
So that's why your low end here is a little bit more bloated, because you need to see these pieces as fast as possible, because if you don't, you're probably going to lose the game. Because it's so fast right now, right?
Yeah, and without stealing your thunder too much either. I would agree, right? I think that's why when we were kind of talking about this and building up our decks, I almost try to trim down any sort of cheeky cards and just maximize my pieces, because the whole purpose of this deck is to find your pieces. If you don't find your pieces, you can't do anything.
Yeah.
So,
but DNA decks, they need to see their pieces even more than other things. I do think that some tech choices are smart going forward, and I think a lot of it is dependent on your local meta. If you're going into a regional or not, and you know what's going to be there. But we'll get to that at the end of the video. There's some things that you could run, and you can swap out a few pieces here and there. But definitely aim to be as consistent as you can with your build, because if you're not consistent, you're not going to DNA. You're not going to get off the ground. Yeah. Moving forward from there, though, to our level 5 lineup, I run 7 level 5s, which, from what I saw from most of JP, I looked over like 20 plus Imperial lists when I was putting this list together, and then I tested this list and then made a few changes from there. Most people ran level or about 7 in JP, so I decided to run with that. And so far, it's been really good for me. I've very rarely missed on a Dramon. Sure. It's happened to me maybe twice out of like, well, how many games we played at this point?
I don't even know, man. We've
40 or 50
lot.
plus, probably. Anyways, we'll start with the first one, which will be our BT-12 Imperialdramon, who has 1 Digivolving. This isn't even. It doesn't matter if you're DNA or not, or DNA Digivolving or not. Trash top Digivolution cards of all of your opponent's Digimon, and then if DNA Digivolving, 2 of your opponent's Digimon with no Digivolution cards can't attack until the end of your opponent's turn. So just a good card to kind of stall. The Source Strip can actually be really good, especially because it's not DNA required. So if you're missing another piece, at least gives you a decent Imperialdramon that's nice to go up into to kind of maybe do some sort of control.
Sure.
And then has an inheritable of end of attack. If you have Imperialdramon in name or free trait, you gain a memory, which is not once per turn. So that can come up with helping extend your plays when you're in your higher level, when you're in your fighter modes and dragon modes.
Gotcha.
There were 2 copies of him. Moving on to the bread and butter, the best card to come out of this set for Imperial by far.
Yeah.
The new BT-16 Imperialdramon. This card is so gas. It's so good. It is ridiculous how good this card is. First of all, Partition is exactly what DNA needs to be relevant in the meta again. It gives you so much more like floatability and sustain for your board, because that was always the problem where like you needed your DNA play to be able to like skyrocket you to a point where you got enough damage that turn, because chances are the clapback you were going to be set back so many pieces.
Yeah.
But anyway, so new Imperialdramon has 1 Digivolving. You suspend all of your opponent's Digimon with as many or fewer Digivolution cards as this Digimon. Then, if DNA Digivolving, all of your opponent's Digimon can't unsuspend until the end of your opponent's turn, which is huge. He's a board lock. Yeah, he's a board lock. He suspends everything because your chances are you're probably gonna have more sources, save for stacks that either like tuck Tamers or run X antibody pieces. Sure. Those are the ones that you're really going to be competing with, which even then with the new Tamer, you can actually get around them having more sources than you. And then he has 1 attacking once per turn. Suspend one of your opponent's unsuspended Digimon. If this effect didn't suspend, unsuspend this Digimon. So he is much like in the way that the old ST9 Imperial is. He can swing for 2 checks. If for some reason after that first check, if for some reason when you swing something gets played out, you can suspend it. You won't be able to unsuspend, but it just gives you more lockdown, because then that thing won't be able to unsuspend because you probably Digivolve that same turn.
Right.
And then inheritable is just still Partition, just to make sure that keyword gets carried through, so you can maintain your board stickiness if you go into a dragon mode or a fighter mode.
Sure.
And then moving on from him, though, we have 1 copy of the ST9 Imperialdra, which, speaking of, who just has 1 Digivolving, 1 DNA Digivolving, return one of your opponent's Digimon with 6,000 DP or less at the bottom of the deck. And then 1 attacking once per turn, unsuspend this Digimon. Pretty straightforward. It is what he is. People know him. It's still a good aggression piece and just a good fallback piece. And the bottom deck does come up for certain decks. It's good against purple matches for sure. But yeah, that's level 5 lineup. 7 level 5s. Like I said, feels consistent enough, feels good. Ideally, you're just wanting to see the BT-16 Imperialdra most of the time anyways, but there is niche moments where the other 2 come up and are very, very useful. Moving on to level 6 lineup, we have Imperialdramon Fighter Mode Ace. And this card is so insane for a rare.
Yeah.
It's so good. So it's an 8 play cost, 5 Evo normally over a level 5. It can Evo for a cost of 2 over a dragon mode. It's an ace card, so can blast Digivolve. It has on player when Digivolving, return one of your opponent's Digimon with as many or fewer Digivolution cards than this Digimon to the bottom of deck, which bottom decking is so powerful. Just because that is probably like there's nothing that searches through a deck yet, right? In Digimon, thank God.
Yeah.
So that putting something to the bottom of the deck locks that card off entirely unless they're going to be able to draw all the way back down there. Because like if you put something in the trash, purple can always grab it back. Even some other like colors now can get cards back out of trash. Bouncing to hand is like it's unless they're playing a stack that doesn't care, or unless they're like playing like a hard stack deck that really gets hurt by that, it doesn't matter usually.
Or just play Mirage.
Yeah. So, it's bottom decking is strong. And then end of attack once per turn, you unsuspend this Digimon. Then if Imperialdramon Dragon Mode is in this Digimon's Digivolution cards, return one of your opponent's suspended Digimon to the bottom of deck. So again, another bottom deck. As long as it's suspended, it works really well with the BT16 Vmon inheritable. Because you'll suspend something, just anything when attacking. And you get the extra check because you'll unsuspend and be able to swing for another check. And as an Ace Evo, he's just so good. He's just so good.
Yeah.
And then
I think with like how your DNA digivolving to, like the number of sources that you have are gonna just be way more than most people like the majority of the time.
Yeah, most of the time you should have more sources than the average stack. Like I said, unless it's an X anybody stack, that's the one time you're gonna be in a bit of a bad spot. But even then, there's ways to get around that, which we'll get into. But yeah, I run 3 copies of the Fighter Mode Ace. I don't think I said how many copies I ran before, but there you go. Now you know. And then moving on to round out our level 6 lineup, I run 4 copies of the new Imperialdramon Dragon Mode, who can normal cost of Evo for 4, but can Digivolve over a Imperialdramon or a Dino Beamon for 3. Has 1 Digivolving. One of your opponent's Digimon or Tamer can't unsuspend until the end of their turn. And then by suspending one of your opponent's Digimon or Tamers, unsuspend one of your Digimon. So you can unsuspend something else. You can unsuspend Dragon Mode itself. So you can do your 2 checks with Paildra or whatever, and then unsuspend. You go Dragon Mode, lock down a Tamer or something else, and then unsuspend. It's super good. The best thing about this card, though, is the Alternance effect, which is when an opponent's Digimon is played or Digivolved by an effect. If you have a Tamer, this Digimon may Digivolve into an Imperialdramon Fighter Mode in your hand without paying the cost. And now effect. That means if they play something off of Supreme Connection, being played or Digivolved by an effect. So, for example, like against Machine, this came up recently. If they like use Supreme Connection, bottom deck, any deck that uses a training's evoing by an effect, you can bottom deck it if you have the Fighter Mode in hand and you're in Dragon Mode. It's such a good lockdown. And in the mirror match, Dragon Mode can just lock out the other Imperial player, which we experienced in our testing, right? Where you would go to Dragon Mode before I could, and then I couldn't use the new Davis Ken to play out one of my rookies for free, because if I did, I would just either lose whatever I had built up in the back, or I'd lose that rookie and it would just get bottom decked if you had the Fire Mode Ace in hand. So it's a really good means of interrupting your opponent's combo or play, assuming that there is any sort of break in there where they're not chaining another effect into it.
Right.
But yeah, it's awesome. It's also good too because if you swing and they Ace Evo, their Ace Evolution is an effect, so you can then Ace Evo mid swing into Fighter Mode Ace and bottom deck their Ace and gain memory back for it as well.
Oof.
It's really good. There's another like little way you can use it there too.
Yeah,
if you want to try and bait out an Ace Evo.
Not to hold you up any longer, but like
no,
I feel like this Ace 2 is something that a lot of people are gonna like kind of autopilot, and it's an effect that we've had Ace cards for a little bit now, but this is sort of like a unique timing that I feel like are gonna trip people up. The amount of times that you've tripped me up just by I'm like, oh yeah, like we'll crack a training going to Galga, and you're like, bye.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh.
And the neat thing is too, is because your turn player, if you're swinging and they Ace Evo while you're swinging, your all turns effect will take priority over their when Digivolving effect.
Right.
So then you'll Evo into your Fighter Mode Ace, and then because that's the newest effect going in, that's the one that has to go out first. So Fighter Mode Ace will proc, and then you'll get rid of their Ace before they can even resolve any of their
It's
effects.
super strong. It's probably going to be, like, at least for BT16, taking over the slot for, like, strongest ace card in the game, I would say.
Yeah, it's up there. It's very much up there. But anyways, that's the Digimon, the Digimon lineup. All in all, it feels really good. It feels really consistent. I've been playtesting it a lot. I have lost a fair amount of matches just because I didn't understand things, but I feel like I've won a lot more than I've lost, so that feels pretty good. But yeah, and like I said, you can play around with ratios, but that's just sort of, you know, up to you. But we'll move on. We still have more cards to go. Moving on to the options that I have in the deck. I run 3 options total. I just run 1 copy of Giga Death. Just because wide boards happen so often right now, like with Fenry, for example, which like I think I did against Arby in our playtesting tonight, where he had a bunch of bodies on board. Wasn't able to finish me that turn, and I just played Giga Death the next turn, and I just sent everything to bottom of deck. And it's good because there's more than just Fenry out there. You have Birds, which isn't crazy meta relevant, I know, but it still exists. Nume is a big one. The amount of boards that just run so many Ukos now, they can like wide board as well, just off of that is crazy. D Brigade's another good example too of a deck that can also wide board pretty effectively. But yeah, just a good option. That's an older one. Which if you don't know what it does though, just to read off real quick, just main. Suspend one of your opponent's Digimon, then place up to 10 of your opponent's suspended Digimon at the bottom of their owner's deck in any order. And then security effect, you just suspend one of your opponent's Digimon and then bottom deck one of their suspended Digimon. But it's just a good card. It's just expensive, so because it's 9 it's a 9 cost, so you don't want to run too many of it because they can just kind of gunk up your hand. Sure. And then to round out the options, I run 2 copies of Megadeth. Just it's Megadeth. It's good option. Suspend something, bounce it to hand. Super cheap, really good right now with aces in the meta. Not too much else to say there. It could be a very, very effective, cost-effective card. And then to get to the Tamer lineup, I run 2 of the BT3 Davis, which is the memory setter one, and then you search on play, reveal top 3, add 1 blue, add 1 green Digimon. Great consistency piece for finding all of your Digimon, and having a memory setter is always nice. And then I run the big thing, the next best card out of the set for Imperial, in my opinion, is the new Davis and Ken. So it's 4 play cost. Start of main phase, you may play 1 Vmon or 1 Wormmon from your hand without paying the cost. At the next time your opponent's turn ends, return that Digimon to the hand. And then has the your turn effect of when one of your Digimon digivolves into a blue or green Digimon by suspending this Tamer, gain 1 memory. If DNA digivolving, trash any 3 Digivolution cards of your opponent's Digimon. Is just it's needed. It's such a needed card. Being able to spit out your rookie for free and then being able to combo up to a level 4 and go into a DNA because a DNA digivolved Digimon is a new Digimon. You don't have to worry about that end of turn being balanced or anything. It just gives you the extra gas you need to be able to make comebacks. There's been so many times too where like I won't even have a rookie in back. I'll just have like 2 or 3 of this Tamer on board, and I'll just hard play rookies and then just DNA and go for game that turn because like my stack or my board got cleared the turn before.
Yeah.
And then the effect of being able to, when DNA digivolving, trash any 3 Digivolution cards. This is what I was mentioning before. This is what can pair really well with your new Imperialdramon. Because you can technically resolve this first before you activate the 1 Digivolving effect of your new Imperialdramon. And so you can kind of guarantee almost that you will have more sources because you can strip their sources. And then ideally, if you strip 3 sources, you'll probably have more sources than them after you've DNA'd into the new Imperialdra. So it's really good. And then to round out the Tamers, I run 1 copy of the BT8 Davis and Ken. Just an extra memory piece, the your turn effect, to be able to, unsuspend one of your 2-color Digimon when you Digivolve into it. So, like, for example, if you swing your Dragon mode and then you want the extra swing, so you Evo into Fighter Mode Ace, you can use the Tamer to unsuspend when you go into Fighter Mode Ace and then swing for 2 more checks potentially.
Sure.
It's a lot of memory trying to get there, but it can definitely happen because we're blue and green, so we're really good at gaining memory and reducing costs and all that good stuff. But yeah, that's the list.
Nice.
That's everything that's in there.
you know, now that we've wrapped up your main list, like I know, like I've said before, like we've seen sort of this deck evolved, at least you and I have. Like, what are some tech choices that you felt like maybe you would sprinkle back in, you would consider, like you said, meta dependent, locals dependent? Like, what are some cards that you would like to see?
I
or
think
have used, I guess, if you want to put it that way.
yeah. I think that the Davis Ken from BT8 is a tech choice in itself. That one you really don't need to run. I like it for the niche time has come up. It's definitely saved me in multiple games.
Sure.
But you could definitely take that out and run another rookie or run another Megadeth, you know, something. Or another Memory Setter Davis. You know, there's other options there. I do like my list at 14 rookies now. It does feel better looking at it more and more. I will say in playtesting, it didn't feel all that different from when I was at 13 because it's, you know, it's one card, so it makes sense. But I think that as long as you're at 13 plus, you're in a good spot. You want to have more than 12 rookies in this deck.
Agreed.
So when it comes to tech choices, your options can be pretty tight. It can be difficult to find the space for them. You could definitely run more Megadeth. There's nothing wrong with more Megadeth. It's just one of the best option cards in the game.
More Megadeth.
More Megadeth. The other thing you could do is you can run the high-speed plugin whatever that EX2 option is.
The blue one.
The blue one. The blue one. Hold on, I'll look at it real quick.
I think it's high-speed plugin D, yeah.
Yeah, it is plugin D. That card is purely a tech choice to get around primarily Magna X, the new BT16 secret rare Magna X.
Sure.
Because that card is a 2-cost option that when you play it, you basically one of your Digimon gains jamming, and then it also can't be blocked for the turn.
Yeah.
I've used it twice now to get around Magna X. Both times I hit options and security right after, and then didn't have another Imperialdramon in hand, so I wasn't able to get the full effect out of it. But most lists did run it in JP. I think it's a good tech choice. I wouldn't run more than one of it. You have so much natural draw that you should just draw into it rather than bottom decking it.
Sure.
But it's still a good card. And there's other times it can come up too, because you could also like use it like just to go for game as long as you have a Tamer on board and you can like, or like
sure.
you know, a blue source on board to play it, and you just need something to just swing for that last check.
Yeah.
Or swing for game. But yeah. I think other than that, the only other tech choice I would say, because I think the rookie line is pretty good. Some people opted not to run any Vmon at all. Some people just run full Wormmon bottom or low end, which is something that you can do if you'd like. It's supposed to be better for consistency. The more I look at it, the more I'm like, I don't know about that, but I guess I can see the argument in a way. The new promo movie Wormmon is really good, but I just think the Vmons are just, they're very helpful. They're very consistent for stuff. And also being able to grab your Memory Setter Davis off search is good because the Wormmons can't do that.
Sure.
And then last
yeah, go ahead.
Last tech choice would be the BT12 fighter mode.
Yeah, I was about to mention that one. Okay.
Yeah, that is, so some people run like 2 of the fighter mode ace and then run of the BT12 fighter mode. I mean, you know, it gets sec +1, it gets blocker. It can be, I believe, 15k swinging in, potentially 17 with the new Vmon.
Yeah.
Which DP climbing does help. But that I opted not to. I like having the aces. The aces feel good. I don't feel like I really need the BT12 one, but it is another card that you could run if you're wanting just a fighter mode that isn't an ace card, so you don't have to worry about passing over a bunch of memory if something happens to it.
Sure. All right. Just to wrap it up real quick, because I know it's getting on the little bit of the longer side of the video, but are there No, you're fine. You're fine. I think this is this is really good, right? Like, this is a deck that a lot of people are definitely interested in, and one that's, I know, you know, it's a pro tag deck, right? Like, they're always going to get support, and it's really strong.
Yes, and I think because it's a newer deck that not everyone is always looking into future sets like we all do.
Yeah.
Like, you know, because we have problems. I think it helps to be a little bit more explanatory with some of the newer cards, so you can understand how they function and how they can combo off each other.
Yeah. What are some matchups that you like to, like, you see it and you're like, this could be good, or like, what do you feel like this deck has a good matchup against?
Honestly, I feel like it is one of the best decks going into the format to deal with armors. Specifically V armors. I haven't tested against vaccine armors very much. It's so that one I'm not super familiar with, so that one could be a little bit more rough. But if it's anything close to normal V armors, Fighter Mode Ace is such a perfect counter card to the new Magna X, because on the following turn, if they don't game you the turn they go into it, and they don't have any way of proccing their protection early, if you have a stack on board, you can very easily just, if they swing or they try and do something by an effect where they play or evo something, you can bottom deck the Magna X. Because you're almost always going to have more sources than any stack in armors. I would say any deck that has a mid-range player wants to play on board, I feel comfortable into. Like Wargrey, I feel comfortable into. Gallant, any deck that just likes the dialogue, Imperial tends to take the edge because it can just be so much more oppressive and do things so much more unfairly, really, than most other decks do that want to play that dialogue.
Which on the flip side, decks that don't have that dialogue, Imperial can't struggle with.
Yes. So, for example, like Mirage. Mirage is probably the worst matchup outside of the Mirror. Because the Mirror is just such a sort of... well, it's definitely like a skill check between you and the opponent. It's also just who sees the Dragon Mode first. Really.
Yeah, like, who sees your double tamer and your Dragon Mode. Those two pieces, you're on board, you're pretty much win the game.
Yeah, like if you see your line and you go up first, you probably have the game. You're probably going to be able to lock your opponent out of the game because they just won't have enough time to do other things because you're going to just have too much aggression. And too much control. As for Mirage, the issue with this deck is that you add so many cards to hand. You're constantly adding cards to hand. You're drawing cards. You can circumvent some of this if you like going off of tech choices from earlier. You can run the new Demi V that gives you plus 1k all turns if you have 2 or more colors. Over the BT12 Demi V for draw. I just think that you need the consistency, so that's why I stick to the BT12. But Mirage is probably your hardest matchup by far. You can Paildra to lock them out of a turn, but Mirage has so many bounces that often they don't care about partition. They'll still just bounce you through it.
Yeah, I feel like your best bet is to just like go fast, right? Like even if they try to bounce the stack, you partition, you do your stuff again, that kind of puts them on the back foot. But if like in the end game, there have been definitely games where like if we have a back and forth and it's coming towards the end game and I do a Mirage play, like I'm gaining 3-4 memory, which is just dirty.
You're gaining memory off the hard evo. You get to a point where you plus no matter what. And me and Ben tested that matchup a lot. I'd say the best way to play it is really just try and play around your BT16 Paildra as best you can to keep it so that Mirage can't unsuspend, so they can't OTK you, and you can force that dialogue. As hard as it is, that's your best bet, really. Outside of that, though, I would say what Drell has cooked up. I'm not going to talk about it in the video because I don't want to spoil it. I mean, people have already kind of seen it. But I don't want to talk too much about it. But just OTK decks in general that don't have board interaction, and when they push up, it's because they're going for game. And if they have some means of gaining protection or controlling your board before they're going for game that turn, that's when it hurts. Which really, it's just like Jess, Mirage, and then Fenry to an extent. But Fenry, I feel like you have a bit better odds of because they're a little bit slower sometimes. They also, you can punish them with Dragon Mode very easily because they have so much evolution by effect that doesn't control your board off of the Evo. So Dragon Mode can definitely help lock off Fenry players, but that's another one to be wary of. Another good matchup too that I want to mention too is Nume. Nume is such a good matchup. You just lock down their whole board and they can't do anything the whole time, pretty much. Which while they can float, sure, but you can still just swing through them. You can bottom deck them very easily. It's another matchup that's works out pretty well for you, which is good for a deck we're going into next format that is definitely one of the best decks out there.
For sure.
I think that's
that does wrap it up for us. But thank y'all for tuning in, and thank you TJ for hopping on and giving us the rundown.
Yes, I apologize for the length.
No. No, I mean, like I said, I think this is good. No, I think this is good because I mean, like we've mentioned multiple times already, this is going to be a key player in BT16, you know, and
Yeah.
it also has been a while since we've seen Imperial do things, you know, since BT8. So definitely like a good refresher course on the deck itself. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Let us know what you guys think down below in the comment section. If you enjoyed it, you like our content, you like what you see, not just in this video, but other videos that we've put up, do consider hitting the like and subscribe button. We would greatly appreciate it. And hopefully we catch you on the next video. Bye-bye.